You're listening to What It's Like with Luce, a podcast highlighting ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I'm your host Lucy Norris, and on today's episode, I'm chatting to model and body positivity activist who also happened to win season 1 of The Fashion Hero, a TV series aimed at changing beauty standards. A victim of severe bullying, growing up in Limerick doesn't hold fond memories for this week's guest. Attempting to take her own life 15 times, the constant jabs from peers became too much for her and she left school before she could complete her final exams. Realising she had a love for the world of entertainment, she began filling her days looking for castings and stumbled across a call for models for a new reality TV show in Canada. Taking a leap of faith, she boarded the plane, and the rest is a victorious history. Now using her platform to continue to promote body positivity and eradicate body shaming in the media, here's what it's like to be Stacey Dineen. Welcome, Stacey. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me. How I like to kick things off with these episodes is to just let people get to know you a little bit more before we dive into some more questions. So if you wouldn't mind speaking a bit about what it was like growing up for you in Limerick.
Well, Limerick is, it's all right. I'm not a fan of the city personally, or the countryside itself, just because I associate with a lot of negative things. I didn't have the best childhood, friend related at all, and even up until secondary school, like I went to secondary school about 10 minutes away from where I live, so still in Limerick, and yeah, just did not really have a very good experience at all with Limerick, which is disappointing because as you grow up you see the beauty in like even the like places that hold the darkest things, you still somehow find like beauty in them. But I would have preferred to like it growing up as well, but unfortunately I was one of the people who were targeted by bullies and stuff, and unfortunately that's still a thing that goes on today with kids growing up in Limerick especially. Like my sister has experienced it and she's only 11, so I feel like it hasn't really changed much. But yeah, growing up in Limerick was not the best. Not the best at all.
Yeah, and as you touched on there, I don't know if you're comfortable speaking about it, but you have been through quite a bit of bullying when you were younger, which led to suicide attempts 15 times and depression for you. So would you mind elaborating on that a little bit and just sharing what that was like for you?
Yeah. So basically, I think the bullying started in primary school. Because I was like the chunky child in the class, like I was chubby, and everybody seemed to target me because of that, because it was somebody to pick on, and yeah, so they used to just call me stupid names like Mount Everest and a whale, the typical, the stereotypical, and it even got so bad that I got stabbed in the leg with a compass.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and went into school the next day. I told the teachers about it too, and they just told the child off because he had ADHD. But this specific child also was a severe bully. He would bully me all the time, and at that stage, I was like, well, it doesn't even matter if that comes into it anymore, because he's like he wasn't going through like a depressive episode or an ADHD episode when it happened. And I feel like they were just using any excuse under the book instead of holding people accountable for their actions. And like when I get into depressive episodes, I take my anger out on everybody who's close to me. I think everybody does. You always take it out on people, and I don't validate it. I don't say, oh well, you have to put up with my emotional like screaming because I'm depressed. I'll say no. I might have a mental illness, but it's still not fair of me to completely take it out on you. So I think the main thing with schools, and this was even going on to secondary school, they just would never hold the bullies accountable for anything, and they would always try to make up excuses, which is really weird because my secondary school had like huge campaigns against bullying, and I was like, you're such hypocrites, because bullying is happening in your hallways every day and you don't care about it. They only have that campaign to get more people to go to the school, but really they've never ever in their lives done anything to prevent bullying to me or anybody else I know that's went through bullying in that school. Because I remember the reason I wanted to go to that secondary school so badly was because they had such an anti-bullying campaign. And I said, well, I was excited after I finished sixth class because I was so excited to go into school. And then I went into secondary school. I made new friends. The first few months were fine. I absolutely loved school for the first time in my life because people actually liked me. I thought, wow, like maybe there isn't that much wrong with me, because that's what I was led to believe in primary school. Because if somebody is bullying you and like bringing you down every day, you're always going to think like it has to be me, like I'm the problem, because this is what's going on in your head. You don't, especially when you're a child, you're not like, oh well, maybe it's them. You don't think that as a child. You're thinking, well, they're picking on me, so something must be wrong with me. And so my self-esteem from a young age was just absolutely shattered. But then it kind of built up in secondary school when I made new friends. But then in secondary school, I actually had lost a lot of weight between the time I left primary school and went into secondary school, because I wasn't eating, just because I was petrified of being bullied in secondary school. So I like starved myself, and I lost a lot of weight and went into secondary school. And I was still, after a few months, somebody passed a comment, and it just triggered everything. Somebody passed a weight comment. I'm not specifically sure what the comment was, just because I had so many thrown at me over the few years, but somebody like passed a comment at me, and it just completely triggered like a mental breakdown. Like I was not eating, I wasn't talking, I wasn't doing my homework, I was falling behind in classes, I didn't want to go in, I was missing out on school. And then I had a friend group who was really good to me, like they were really close, and they kind of brought me back into school, and I was so happy again. But that friend group, actually somebody told them a false rumor about me, that apparently I had said something about them. This was unironically a bully who was bullying me.
Mm-hmm.
And they believed it and actually stopped talking to me, so I had nobody. And then I had another friend group, and they done the exact same thing, the people who used to bully me. So they were just out to make sure like that I never had like any friends. And I was just like, why is this happening again? And I sat down when I was older, and I was like, is it something I'm doing? Like, is there literally something I'm doing? Or have I just been in a horrible situation like during all of my school years? And so I sat down with my mom, and I told her everything that was going on, and I was like, it has to be me. Like no friend group is just going to leave me after like being friends with me for so long, and like nobody's going to call me names for no reason, because surely people aren't that bad. And I sat down, and I really like, I'd never done anything bad to anybody. If anything, I was always extremely nice to people, just because I knew what it was like to be mistreated. And it just got to the stage where the bullying got so bad in secondary school that I came home and I was like, Mom, if I go back into that school, I'm not going to make it through the week. Because at that stage, I was already like, this is when the suicide attempts happened. And I told my mom, and I was like, I can't go back in. I literally need to go to a different school, or I'm not going to survive the year, never mind graduate. And so I left secondary school in fifth year, or after transition year, and I wanted to go to a different school for fifth year, because I did want to finish school, you know, I wanted to do my leaving cert.
Yeah.
And I went to a different school, and I was so traumatized from the bullying that I literally only was in the other school for one day, and I came home and just had a breakdown. I was like, I can't do it. I was just so in my own head and so emotionally broken and mentally drained that literally if I had stayed in any school at the time, I would have just like I wouldn't have been here today. I was just so fed up with it.
Yeah, it sounds like you went through a hell of a lot, which, first of all, I'm so sorry to hear that you had to go through that, especially at such a young age. I admire the fact that, you know, you can sit here strongly and speak about it as well. It's really courageous and admirable for me on this side listening to it. Um, and so when do you feel like your turning point came about, where you were in such a bad place, no fault of your own, you know, I guess just feeling lost, like there was no way out? What was that turning point for you? You know, because I'm looking at it from this end now, how you've done such incredible things. So what was that turning point that I guess you kind of went, no, I'm going to take back my life, I'm going to take care of myself now and make something for myself?
Well, I kind of just sat down after I had realized I wasn't going to go back to school. And I was like, well, you have all this time now and nothing to do with it. So I was thinking of what I would like to do. And immediately I knew that I had an interest in like TV and stuff like that. But I wanted to also do something about mental health awareness and body acceptance, because I know it's only been recent that like plus size models and stuff have been in the scene.
Yeah.
And it was all for me. I just wanted like everybody to be accepted, because I know firsthand what it was like to be body shamed, and I literally was in the mentality of, right, I want to leave school. I left it, and now I want to take things into my own hand and take the battles I've went through and apply them so that a lot of girls don't know, like, so they know they're not alone, and that I've went through it as well, and that I am working on getting through it. And so I left school, and I I actually wrote a song when I was in secondary school. This is when I was going through bad depression myself. It was about suicide prevention, and I was only 16 when I wrote that, and I went and recorded it and released it, and we sold the CDs and donated it to suicide prevention.
Amazing.
And so yeah, that was really cool. It honestly was really cool. I was really happy about it. And so yeah, I left school and I was looking through like casting calls, thought I was just living in a fantasy world, but I was like, well, we have time, so we may as well just give it a go. And I was very open on my social media about like my struggles and how I was planning on getting through them, and just basically trying to prove that if you're going through something similar, your life is not over. Like, you can get through it. And I'm going to show you how, because I'm the lowest of the low right now, and I'm adamant to not be this way forever. So I'm going to try do it. And if I can do it, I want to prompt you to try do it as well. And so I landed a spot on this TV show called The Fashion Hero.
Yeah.
And it was all about everything I was for. It was all about diversity and acceptance. And it was the first TV show that took models and didn't tear them apart for how they looked. Instead, they took models that didn't fit your stereotypical model, and they took them in exactly how they were and showed them that they were beautiful exactly how you were. And that, to me, was just an absolute dream. And you could tell how passionate I was about it before I even applied, because I went on to win the whole show. So I was very, very determined. And I think that was when I finally realized, after winning that show, like, you've literally had your voice and your confidence taken away so much. And now your voice is worth more than any of their voices are ever going to be.
I love that. I love how you kind of took something so negative that happened to you and turned it into a positive. And as you mentioned there, you went on to win an international show, which is incredible, and I want to talk more about that in a moment. But first of all, going back to even before that, I'd just be curious to know how you were feeling about the fact that obviously you had an interest in, say, like the entertainment industry and in acting and TV and that kind of thing. Did you ever worry that it might potentially be a trigger for you, considering how notoriously judgmental it is? I know that it's not always this way, but people have perceptions where like they'll pick apart your appearance, your personality, everything about you is on show to be judged. Did you have any concerns that that might not be the best place for you?
Absolutely. Actually, that was one of my main concerns about it, because on the show, you have to admit what you don't like about yourself. And that's scary for anybody to do alone, never mind in front of the whole world.
Yeah.
And so before I was applying for shows, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't thinking about it while I was applying, because I wasn't expecting to actually get anywhere with it. I was just, branching out to see how far I could take it. And so yeah, then when I finally got the email saying that I have been accepted and that I'll be on season 1, I kind of got the mentality, because all I ever done from up to when I left school was run away from all of my problems. I was always so the way you have fight or flight?
Yeah.
Yeah, I always like ran. So I was always the flight. And I was like, you know what? The media sucks. like big time, even today, even in this day and age, after everything that's happened with many like suicides in the industry, you still get people like Billie Eilish, for example. Last week, she couldn't even wear a crop top in public without being body shamed.
Yeah, I saw
So
that. That's terrible.
yeah, like, so nothing has changed, and nothing has ever changed unless somebody fights for it. You know, everything that's happened in history, even Irish independence, for example, that didn't happen without monumental things happening. And I knew nothing was ever going to happen unless I added to the people who wanted to fight for what was right. And so I said, you've been running away from your problems all this time. So, and you also know what it's like to be so low. Because I was literally at the point where no matter what anybody said at that stage, it wasn't going to make a difference to me because I was at my lowest point regardless.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'm so done with trying to be what everybody else wants me to be. And I'm just going to be myself. And if somebody doesn't like how I look, I don't care. I will get, if somebody slates me on a newspaper, I will take it and I will turn it around on them for body shaming. And that's what people are starting to do. And media is getting dragged. The Sun is getting dragged. Everyone is getting dragged for body shaming and bullying. And it's about time. You know why? Because that wasn't the case years ago. That was never the case. It's only now that people are being called out on all that stuff. And that's because women like myself have fought for it. You know, they've went on social media, showed their stretch marks, showed their, you know, little hanging belly, and they're like, you know what, I do have this and it's not a problem, and if you think it's a problem, then you're the problem, not my stomach. And people now are becoming more aware to keep their mouths closed if they don't have anything nice to say, because at the end of the day, you could have, because the majority of people I've seen that have like abused females on social media have been like men that don't even show their face on, or girls. Like, there's like a range of people, but these people don't understand that they could have kids in the future, and how would they feel if they saw somebody comment that on their kid's photo? So they wouldn't like it. So what makes you think it's okay to comment something absolutely disgusting on somebody's appearance when, firstly, it literally doesn't even affect you, and secondly, all that comment is going to do is make them feel bad? Why would you want to go out of your way to make people feel bad? And less people are getting away with it these days, and I'm really happy about it, because honestly, I can see a day where social media bullying will actually be against the law. And I know in Ireland, Coco's law is most likely going to come into place, which means everyone who's caught online bullying will actually serve jail time. And I think that is absolutely amazing, because the only reason it's still happening today is because there's nothing done about it, because you can hide behind a screen.
Yeah, it's that keyboard warrior thing that honestly, it's so, so dangerous, and not enough people realize the impact. And it's so sad. I think that it takes someone taking their own life for people to actually sit up and realize how serious and severe the problem is, especially since nowadays a lot more of the younger generation would be way more invested in social media than, say, even us sometimes, and to have like 10-year-olds 11-year-olds go through that kind of thing, it's absolutely disgusting. So yeah, like I'm just sitting here with so much admiration for you and people like you who are, you know, portraying normal online as well, because not even anything extraordinary. It's 99% of people have all of the things you're saying that you know, people are finally showing, and so that we don't have to look at Photoshop the whole time online, because it's not good for anyone's health. But yeah, so I guess going back to the fashion hero, you obviously won, which congratulations, that's amazing.
Thank you very
How did
much.
your life change after that show?
Well, I feel like going on to the actual show brought me out of my shell, because I was forced. Well, I wasn't forced because I signed up for myself, but it was definitely scary. I was the youngest person on the show. And so I was traveling at 18 years old all the way to Canada on my own to film a show for 6 weeks. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I didn't even know if it was legit. I could have been kidnapped.
You know? Can you imagine? Oh
Imagine. Oh my God. But no, I was honestly scared about that, because I've read loads of stuff before about that happening, like vulnerable people getting dragged into those types of situations. So obviously I was very aware.
Yeah.
And I was adamant not to leave the airport until I was sure that it was legit and stuff. And then when I got to the airport, there was a camera crew, and I was like, okay, I'm in safe hands. And so I was much more relaxed. But I was kind of, once I landed, forced into this social situation with like a lot of high people in the industry and a lot of people that I would probably never talk to unless I was actually put into the situation, because I used to only talk to people that I thought I was alike, and there was so many different types of people there. So it definitely helped me communicate more. It's like socially 100%. I'm so much better now with social skills, and that's all because of the show. Another thing was, it was really inspiring to see so many different types of people who were just so happy to even get the chance to model for the first time in their lives. I said to me, I'm so happy this is happening, but it's not right that these people feel so excited because they're getting one chance to be on the cover of something just because of how they look. I was like, I'm hoping this is the first step towards something amazing worldwide for a lot of people. And so it was like really interesting to see all the different types of people. And then of course my confidence also picked up on the show, because I realized like, wow, like 20 something thousand people had auditioned for this show, and I am one of 30 people that were invited over for the filming. And I was saying to myself, I remember I was crying like 2 weeks before I went out, because I was like, oh, like, what are you doing? You've never been accepted anywhere before. They're just not going to like you like everybody else. And when I got there, I think it was the turning point for me where I was like, wow, I actually was the problem. It was always just people being assholes.
Yeah.
I was just like, I had a bad draw. And I feel like that was the turning point for me, where you can literally do whatever you want to do. And it's amazing that you literally left school a few months ago and you're in Canada now, while all of them are inside doing maths. And to think that you were going to end it all because of those people is pretty crazy. And then that was the point where I was like, no matter how my life gets, I'm never going to put my life on the line anymore. Because when I was at my lowest point, I didn't ever think there was going to be a way out. Like, I was convinced that this was my life. Because when you're like extremely down, it's really hard to think of the positives. But when I got out of that dark place and I was in Canada, I had swore to myself that no matter how hard life gets, I'm going to fight through it. Because that was proof to me that there really is like light at the end of it all. All of these things that happen to you, they're both a blessing and a curse, because they absolutely tear you apart. But they will give you the most incredible life lessons that you will use for the rest of your life. Like, I had to mature at such a young age just to cope with what everybody was throwing at me. And I was able to apply that to my time in the Fashion Hero. And I went on to win it. And in doing that, I was able to spread my message across the world, which saved a lot of lives. And I was able to go on after the show and go on the Late Show. I went on to Ireland AM with one of the, I'm not sure what she was involved in, but I think it was Operation Transformation.
Okay.
I was on Ireland AM with her, and I had a debate with her on Ireland AM after the Late Show about why I thought it was a terrible idea to weigh kids in school, because she was trying to bring it into a law that kids should be weighed in school.
That
And I
would
was
have
like,
been a
absolutely
terrible,
not. Yeah, I
terrible
was like,
thing.
yeah. So they contacted me and they were like, yeah, she works in the government with like the health, and she's pretty intimidating, and would you mind coming on? She wants to weigh kids in school. I was like, say no more, put me on with her. Absolutely not, that is not happening. Put me on with her, I don't care. So I went up against this grown woman and pretty much won the debate. I've watched all of her interviews. I've never seen her so quiet in her life. She couldn't even get a word in. And in return, everybody on social media agreed with me. And so after the Fashion Hero, I went on to do a lot of stuff in Ireland, because I know Ireland has a big mental health problem, and it's truly heartbreaking. And so I was able to add a little bit of light to that, and even a little bit of light to me in anybody's life is a lot. So I spend my days just trying to firstly keep myself together, and secondly, I'll always try and make someone's day better, even if it's complimenting a stranger and just saying, oh, like, you have really nice hair, or just something like that. I will always go out of my way to try and make somebody else smile. And since the coronavirus has hit, we haven't been able to film season 2 of the show just yet. I am going back for it, but I've actually managed to take myself back to education after all these years. So I'm actually doing the Leaving Cert
Amazing.
now. Yeah, so I'm actually in a college in Cork doing an adult Leaving Cert, and got my first month down, and now we're on midterm. So it's
Amazing.
crazy. Mhm.
That's so incredible to hear. And yeah, I mean, my mind's blown by the 180 transformation that you've had in such a short space of time as well. I think you're 22, am I correct in saying that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
22.
so already you're only 22 and look how much, you've achieved, and you're such an advocate for something that's so important as you've demonstrated there. And so obviously leading on from that, you've obviously experienced success at such a young age as well. So I'd be curious to know if you did have a personal definition of what the word success would mean to you.
Yeah. So literally, a lot of people think success is, like you're financially stable, or you have a good relationship, or all of that stuff, right? A lot of people think that's what success is. You see a man in a suit walking down, you're going to say, oh, he's driving a Lamborghini, he's very successful. That's not at all how I see success. I view success as happiness. If you were happy, then you were successful. It doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter what your family situation is. If you have happiness and you are happy and confident, or even comfortable with your own skin, or even coping with your mental illness on a day-to-day basis, you are successful. If you wake up in the morning, regardless of how bad your day is going, and you get up and you get on with it, you are successful. Literally, if you're fighting for your life, no matter how good or bad it is, that to me is what success is just taking anything as it comes, and no matter how hard it gets, getting through it, and you are successful. That is my opinion of success anyway.
In terms of social media, and obviously you have a huge platform that you use for so much good, and you share so much of yourself in order to help others, which is so inspirational. But at the same time, you are still a human, and I'm sure sometimes, you might have times when you're like, oh my God, I just don't want to post, or I don't want to touch the app. So
Uh-huh.
how do you establish, I guess, that line between fighting for your cause, and making sure that you're maintaining a platform so that you can spread your message, but also living your life offline and keeping some things to yourself?
So there's honestly not a lot that I keep to myself when it comes to my social media. Obviously family issues and stuff and relationship, like I would keep those private. But anything that's like me and my mental health and like my body positivity struggles, I will share with everybody on my platform because they're my issues. But I would never share an issue that I share with somebody else just because they might not like their side of it being on social media. So I
Yeah.
kind of tend to just keep it to me, because if somebody comments on like my situation, it's only going to affect me. It's not going to affect the other person involved. So I respect everybody else that I'm involved with, like family wise and stuff. I respect them a lot when it comes to my social media. And honestly, I don't go out of the way to post because that just adds stress and then it takes the enjoyment out of it. And everybody on my social media knows like that I'll post every now and then, but when I do post, it'll be like an update or a picture that they'll see and it'll make them feel better about themselves, or something like that. Like the last picture I posted was literally just me with my dog, and I was literally just telling everybody, look, lockdown again, probably all going to break down, but just think about the day that you're going to be able to walk down the street without a mask and actually hug your friends. Like if you live for anything throughout this, literally live for being able to hug, laugh and cry with your friends and family again. And I feel like a lot of people appreciate that stuff because it's honesty, it's pure, it's honest, they can relate to it. And people who don't exactly have friends, because I was one of those people, I used to turn to Ashley Graham, for example, on Instagram, or
Oh
Demi
yeah.
Lovato, who would just be so open and honest. And when you can relate to somebody, you kind of form your own little friendship with them, even if they don't know you exist, like because you can relate to them so much, because you're like, wow, I feel this way too. And I feel like it's so empowering when you see somebody like those, because in your mind, like I know in my mind anyway, Demi Lovato and Ashley Graham are absolutely gorgeous,
Yeah.
absolutely amazing lives. And then you see the truth, like Demi has had such a hard life and she's still continuing on. And it's the same with Ashley Graham. So it literally just goes to show, like, we're all human at the end of the day. We all go through the same stuff. And I just think social media, the best way to go about it is just being 100% you. And I think eventually that's what's going to take over, is the real posts. I think sometime soon nobody's going to care for the Instagram models and stuff anymore. I think everybody's just going to want to see some real stuff that they can actually relate to, and not look at a picture and be like, oh, why don't I look like this, or why can't I have that life, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I think that relatability that you touched on, it seems to just get rid of any loneliness that people feel as well, because it's like refreshing, especially in times like this, if they can go online and then be met with a post that's basically telling you, don't worry, I'm feeling it too. And you kind of just breathe in a sigh of relief that, you're not weird for feeling this, or you're not alone in, losing your mind over the fact we're stuck in our homes again.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
I just have one more question for you, and I'm going to let you get on with your Friday night because I know I've kept you a while.
No
But
problem. Honestly, I love this type of stuff because, somebody could listen to this later who's really had a bad week and could just be at their wits' end. And they could listen to this and be like, wow, you know what? I'm going to give myself one more week even to appreciate all of that. And literally, like, just talking openly about it can save lives, because you never know. Like, take for example, the people watching your podcast, like, you have no idea how many of those could be going through such a hard time right now, especially with COVID. And they could hear something like this and be like, well, she got through that. We can get through this lockdown. We can get through this week. We can all do it.
yeah, definitely. And I think, that is always the aim with any kind of conversation, is just, if we can
Mm-hmm.
help anyone in what we're talking about, we're just very casually sitting, chatting to each other about this, but it's such important information, and it's such important
Uh-huh.
messages to let people hear. So my last question for you to wrap everything up is, if I put your 10-year-old self in front of you now, having been through the monumental amount of things you've been through thus far, what's the biggest piece of advice you'd give that 10-year-old self moving forward?
Just hang on. Literally, every morning, no matter how hard it is, just hang on, because it does get better. And yeah, it might get worse after it gets better, but it's still going to get better every time. So I would just tell myself to be gentle to myself, be kind to myself, and just hang on as much as I can, because this is my life and I would like to be on this planet for as long as I want. So I would tell my 10-year-old self to look in the mirror every morning and just tell myself to hold on, regardless of how the day is going to go. Get up, hold on, and get on with it.
I love that. And I have to say, my heart breaks for a 10-year-old you. I think it's so disgusting how much you had
Mm-hmm.
to go through, but to come out on the other end the way you have is absolutely insane. And I just want to thank you so much again for giving up your time to chat on this. It's been so nice getting to know you in this weird virtual way that everyone is doing at the moment. But yeah, thank you so much again, Stacey. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Thank you so much for having me. I feel like this is a very important topic, and honestly, as many people as it reaches, that's all that matters.
Thank you so much for listening, and as always, please rate, share, and leave a comment if you like what you hear. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Follow at What It's Like Pod on Instagram and Facebook to keep up to date with everything. To find out more about Stacey and to follow her story, visit the links provided in the show notes. I'll be back next week with more inspiring stories, but for now, this has been What It's Like with Luce.